Wildlifer Log 0709-2018. Today we join Johnny Ray, resident photographer of the Steger Wilderness Center, and his dog Jasper to learn about the origin of Jenna's cabin in the woods.
The logs came from the crazy windstorm that we had it was 2 years ago, so 2016.
No.
Yeah, I was up here for the whole summer, and I remember I was living in the watchtower, which is a pretty small, exposed cabin up on the hill there, and it hit out of nowhere at 3 a.m. And I woke up to my window being blown off its hinge and onto my bed.
Oh.
The window just landed in my lap.
Wow.
It was terrifying. It was amazing. And I watched the trees outside. There used to be a lot of trees around that cabin, and I watched them go this way, then this way, then this way, and then they never came back this way. You know, I mean, it was loud, and lightning was so constant that it was almost like you could just see. And it was that storm that ended up downing a whole bunch of red and white pines. Really large, healthy, beautiful white pine and red pine, but their root systems were so shallow that, you know, in that kind of a wind, they couldn't stand up. So, and Will said it's the most trees he has ever seen go down here since he's been out here.
Wow.
Is what he told me. Will used the bobcat to pull as many as he could from the forest, but then also Lisa Ringer came up with her horses and Mike, and they pulled even more of those same trees out from that storm last summer. That's where most of these logs came from. There's a couple white pine in this mix, but it's almost all red pine. And I mean, up to like the one right under the window there, I mean, up to 18 inches in diameter. They're huge, huge trees. One of them was 36 feet long, was just the log itself. But, I mean, the whole thing, every single bit of bark was scraped off by residents, which is pretty cool. I think they got pretty strong scraping these logs off. I wish I had my draw knife here. It's a 14-inch draw knife.
Wow.
It was amazing. We had that one, which is designed for scraping logs, and then we had a bunch of little puny little draw knives, and so it was kind of
Must look funny on these huge logs.
I know. We had the whole resident crew would come and help me. And the first one to show up got the really nice draw knife, and everybody else got the little puny ones. A true log skinning knife is a little bit heftier than this one. A little bit wider, a little bit thicker blade, and it allows you to make a really long draw.
Draw knife because you pull it towards yourself, eh?
Exactly. It's a draw towards yourself. Yep. And typically, I'm peeling the log or skinning the log. It depends on how you want to say it, but the goal is to get not only the outer bark, but the inner cambium layer off as well to prevent all sorts of future mildew, rot, insect problems. And at least for the first couple days, it leaves the logs bright white, and then they pretty quickly, you know, get a tan from the sun almost, or just from being exposed. It was really cool because they got a rhythm with it. You know, if you go and you scrape for just an hour or two, or even half a day, you don't really get it. You know. But man, some of the residents that scraped most of these logs, I mean, after a few days, they weren't complaining anymore. They'd figured out a way it was easy on their body, and it was effective with the tool, and it was cool to see them in action. When I first arrived to build the cabin, Mike Falls had been up here, and he had started the cabin. And he knows this style, this full-scribe. It's kind of a Finnish style. Full-scribe log cabin with saddle notches in the corners, and he had started it up to like 2 courses, and then, as Will said, it was a really cold week that he was up and he was working, and he kind of threw his hands up in the air and said, "I'm never building one of these cabins again," because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of fussing around, and the scribing is really delicate and time-consuming. And so Will had known that I took a course on this same style of log building, and asked me if I'd come up and finish that cabin that Mike Falls started. So I came up and I met Mabel Smaybakken, who was a resident last year, and I had her help me, and we literally pulled apart what Mike had done, and we just needed to see, where everything was at and what was going on. And Will decided he didn't want the windows in the same places, and we had a lot of stuff to work with. It wasn't like starting a log cabin from scratch. We were kind of redoing the beginnings of another cabin. And so it took us a couple days to get oriented, but once we did, we put back together the bottom 2 courses of what Mike had done, and then we just got started on our own. And this is not a traditional style for finishing a log cabin, but it's something that was part of the training for a group of Summit Academy students. And it's also the same red and white pine from that blowdown that was just milled into 2x6.
Oh, okay.
And the way that we're going to finish it is we're actually going to take drywall, which is left over from a project in the convening center, and we're going to put a ceiling in it. And I think it's actually going to look really cool to have a white ceiling, really like brightening everything up, and then contrasting with the natural wood walls. And then on top, I'm really excited that Will wants to do this, but we're going to put a sod roof on top of this.
Oh.
So it'll have a green roof, which is going to be pretty amazing. I've been calling this cabin full-scribe because the other cabins we all call the dovetail cabins because that's the style, but this is a full-scribe. I think it needs a more magical name than that. Maybe something to do with the wolves that keep visiting it.